Good morning, traders. It's 8 a.m. Chicago time on Monday, the 6th of November, 2023. This is episode number 2568. Derivatives trading is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. How are you this morning? How did you do last week? Pretty busy week last week. A lot of upside pressure. Hopefully you were not on the wrong side of the market, and hopefully you had a restful weekend. Let's jump right into the pre-market summary sheet here. Mixed market on the open. It was pretty much unchanged through most of the session, and now popping a little bit higher. We're seeing more pressure, upside pressure in the NASDAQ and the S&P since I started doing my homework about an hour and a half ago. But still, the overall posture is mixed. Key earnings, we don't have too much here. Constellation Energy and so on. I'm not going to get into that. I'm only going to get into it if there's something really significant on deck. Take note of the week ahead in the pink area. Tomorrow we don't have any eco data, but we do have Gilead, Uber, Occidental Petroleum, KKR, and some others. Wednesday, since this is Monday, I'd like to go through the week. Wednesday, we have U.S. Fed's Powell and China inflation. We do get Disney, Airbus, Siemens, Bayer, and Deutsche Post on Wednesday. Thursday, we got U.S. Fed's Powell again, I believe testifying. And then we have AstraZeneca out of Great Britain and Deutsche Telekom out of Germany. It's a big component of the DAX. And then Friday, we wrap up with GDP prelim Q on Q from Great Britain. We get ECB's Lagarde. We get U.S. Michigan sentiment prelim. And then as far as earnings, the big one on Friday's Allianz, also out of Germany. Not much on the news wires overnight. We do know that the U.S. Secretary of State Blinken visited the West Bank, which is Palestinian territory, and also made a surprise appearance in Iraq in the hopes that they can avoid contagion into the region as this conflict continues. Pretty brutal what's going on there. ECB's Lagarde says the ECB is determined to bring inflation to 2%. Russia and Saudi Ministry of Energy will continue a voluntary cut of 300,000 barrels per day and 1 million barrels per day, respectively. Today, we really don't have much in terms of economic numbers. There were some numbers out of Germany, France, and Great Britain, but nothing too significant. We do get the Canadian IVPMI, which is significant for Canada, at 11 o'clock. We get Fed's Cook at 12, BOE's Pill for Great Britain at 1. And then we get the Balanced Trade, which is a high-tier number for China, at 11 p.m. Exports, imports as well. And then this evening at 11:30, we get the Reserve Bank of Australia's interest rate decision, expecting it to jump 25 basis points to 4.35% from 4.1. Note the numbers here. Everything has gone down in terms of rotations for the last week. Rotations have dropped. I don't want to say significantly, but noticeably. 6.5 to 6 is the harmonic for the S&P, and so on. Everything has dropped off, which is to be expected when you have a rally market. Generally, it is the rotations are going to collapse. Volatility is going to shrink. Ranges are likely to shrink, and we're seeing that across the board. 3.1 for the RTY, 42 for the Dow, and 0.29 from 0.3 to 29 cents from 30 cents in crude. Ranges have also fallen. The S&P range, what we would consider to be a normal range, or the first standard deviation of ranges over 252 days, has dropped to 58. Has dropped to 58. Also, the Dow has dropped from 475 or something to, let me tell you what it was. The Dow dropping from 485 to 445 in terms of range, and the rest held steady. The S&P currently in a pretty balanced profile, bounced overnight. Look at the volume. The volume has dropped dramatically. The volume has gone from coming in and just hammering away at 270,000 to 300,000 by the time the open in the U.S. occurs, to now we have 165,000, which is quite low, way, way, way lower than what we've seen. We've got a range of 12.75 points, pretty bad, and the inventory is 95% long because we're basically holding the upper range of Friday, and most of the volume has gone up over there, over that close. And the point of control is at 43.81. The point of control on Friday was around, was pretty much on top of settlement at 43.76. So I got to tell you that doesn't look too good for today in terms of heavy action. So what does that tell us? Well, how does that inform us as traders? The way that informs us is to tell us that we need to pull on the reins a little bit, slow down a little bit. Things are slowing down. Participation is slowing down. And so don't go in there aggressively looking for breakout trades like we saw last week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that's what's going on. Crude is popping a little bit, but crude has fallen off quite a bit. It came down from 82.50-ish all the way down into the 80 handles, now pushing higher into 81, through 81. We're seeing copper pop a little bit. We're seeing crypto pop a little bit as well. Here's the overall view. Look at that overnight session in the S&P. Pretty fugly. Very, very tight to the point that we're seeing the entire overnight session in what is probably, 20% of the screen. Remember, I'm using either point and figure charts here for active charts or Renko, and so I don't get the same number of bars every day. The number of bars is a function of the range and volatility that the market is seeing. So it's one of the early gauges that I use for how much action there is. If I look at the day session and it's, I have to scroll to see it, it means it was quite busy. What we did on Friday, the expectation on Friday was for us to push into 4,400. And what we did on Friday is we opened right near the low. We opened at 59.5. We went to 58.25, chopped around, and then broke higher. And what we saw there is pretty aggressive buying breakouts. I was actually creating a video of that setup, but it's not complete. But what we saw here is a very clear sideways, a lot of accumulation in the 63, 64 area. That's, to me, that's an important area now, 63, 64. A lot of accumulation, and we saw a strong break on really strong delta running higher. Didn't quite get to the anticipated target of 4,400. We pushed and put in the IB, which is a really nice looking IB, but we ended up pushing all the way back. This looked to me like it was jumping into balance very, very quickly. And that's what we ended up with for the session on Friday. We ended up with a pretty balanced profile. The much of what happened on Friday was contained within the value area, and we are opening in the value area. So as we look at the overnight session, we see immediately that the VWAP, mid, point of control, and where the price action has been is on top of each other. This is telling us that we're opening in balance. The market condition overall, if we look at the bigger picture, the market condition is imbalanced to the buy side, one time framing up. We could see that we have higher lows. But if you look closely, you'll see that there's pretty poor structure here. So let's throw a volume profile from the low all the way up to what we did on Friday, and you'll see that this profile is just not very strong. These are the back to the analogy of the wall. This is a wall that's missing a lot of blocks, so it's relatively weak, right? It's not as strong as a wall that's been laid with every layer offset and no blocks missing. What this has done is it has created a lot of multi-distribution, heavy price discovery profiles with gaps in between. This isn't what we would want to see in an orderly rally. And so what does that mean? We did come back to our early October balance. This was completely expected. This is why the 4,400 was expected. Really 43.96 or so is the point of control of that area. And we went to 91.75 on Friday. But what this means is that if it doesn't hold this balance over the next few days, if it doesn't just chop in this balance here and it starts to roll over, this gives us very clear targets and very clear areas for retests, to the downside. This can slip pretty quickly back into the 4,200 handle and back into that 42.67, 65 area. So today, what we have is kind of interesting because we are back in the bigger balance. So we're back in this box. Let's draw the box. We exclude excesses from this box. So this box goes something like this. And let's project it forward. So that's where we were on Friday. We're opening just inside of that box this morning. And as we fall out, and if we do take out the Friday low, which is a possibility, Friday low is 43.58, well within range, only about 30 points away, 25 points away. This could really start to accelerate us on the way down. It creates pretty good opportunity. But if we sit here this morning, if we open, test down, check the 43.76 prior settlement and close, and then starts to grind, it's very likely to just get stuck in the 4,400 given the volume, given that Friday was non-farm payrolls and unemployment, and statistically speaking, Monday after non-farm is usually a pretty quiet day. Market digests generally what the news is from Friday. And so I expect it to be quite choppy. I expect to be a lot less active, which creates opportunities, better opportunities elsewhere. Normally I'd go to look at crude, but crude has got the same story. Crude has been checking and rechecking. So this is the balance in crude right here. Right there. Leave out the excesses. And we are right smack dab in the middle of balance in crude as well. So again, just choppy, slow down, breathe, wait for the market to come to you. This is the kind of market where we have our price map, and we know what areas we expect the market to react in. This is the kind of market where you wait to see the reaction before you act, versus anticipating that it's going to break or whatever, and you end up giving up so much of your account trying to anticipate what the market will do. Very, very likely to be quite choppy here going forward. So until something new comes in and gets repriced, we are looking at a pretty kind of stuck market, in my opinion. Looking at the NQ, same story. NQ back in its back it's same thing, back in its October balance right up here. It's right at the bottom of it. As I said, the NQ on the way up seemed to be a lot weaker than the S&P has been. NQ probably test down, chop up, push to the 15,300 and kind of hold steady in this area as we check and recheck prior balance. Without news, this is likely to be a pretty slow trade. Okay, that's the bottom line. Bearer of bad news, I know, but you know, it is what it is. Here's your structure again, but shown in profile only. You could see that we ran up, and this was a very frantic kind of run. Open at the low, finish at the high, but Friday, open at the low, finished at the middle. So it's the buyers were willing to give up some territory on Friday. It's starting to weaken out. It's starting to weaken out on the buy side, which makes sense because we are in this balance zone, as I'd mentioned. Okay, so we've accomplished this big task of moving from the lower distribution back into balance, and now the market's just going to sit around and wait to see what happens from here. What goes on with interest rates? What goes on with unemployment? What about these wars? What about Ukraine? What about Saudi Arabia? What about, you name it, whatever is going to be priced in. Okay, so maintain your focus. Make sure that you're not getting drawn into just garbage trades, and that, you know, look at this thing. It's just a lot of overlap. You see those orange tags on every bar? This is a 1 tick by 8 PNF. A lot of overlap. A lot of bars that just go up, and then trade against each other and so on. Very poor structure this morning. But with balance, we get imbalance, right? So don't let it fake you out. If we start to get compression, the problem is we don't have the volume. But if we start to get compression on good volume, then the breakout is very likely to be next. So just be patient. That's the biggest thing I can offer you today. Good luck. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you have not. There's a pinned note at the top of the chat. You can click on the link there and it'll subscribe you. Good luck. It's free. Cheers.